So now let's start building the actual functionality of our API. We will start by adding the ability for users to sign up. For this, we will be creating our first mutation. While query is used to perform read operations, that is, fetching data from the server, a mutation is used to perform write or data manipulation operations, such as insert, update, and delete. So we'll start with the schema, which we will define inside the user type definition file. Type mutation. And because we've already defined a root mutation type, so we need to extend that. Now we can define our mutation, which will be sign up. And it will accept some arguments, which are username, which will be a string, and it will be required, an email, which will be a string as well, and required, then the password, which will also be a string. Then we want the sign up mutation to return a JWT token. So we say token, and it will be required. But first, we need to define the token type. Token, and it will be a string, and required. Now let's move on to creating the resolver for this sign up mutation. So inside the resolvers directory, I'm going to create a new file called user.js. In here, we will export an object which will contain other objects. For now, we'll create a mutation object, then create the sign up function. A typical resolver function accepts 4 arguments, which are the parent or the root, the argument, the context, and info. Since GraphQL query can be nested, the parent object contains the results returned from the resolver on the parent field. Then the arguments are the arguments passed to a query. Then the context is shared by all resolvers. Then lastly, the info contains information about a particular query. This is rarely used and we won't be dwelling much about it in this course, so we can get rid of it. Remember, we passed our models as the context to the Apollo server because we want it to be accessible in all our resolvers, so we can extract the models from the context. In the same vein, we can extract our arguments as well, which are username, email, and password. Before we create a new user, we want to first make sure that a user with the email address does not already exist. So we need to perform the check first. So we are finding one where the email field is equals to the one supplied. And we need to make this an async function. If a match exists, we throw an error. Apollo error. And the message will be email already in use. But first, we need to pull in Apollo error. Otherwise, we create the new user. Then we'll pass an object containing the username, the email, and the password. Remember, we don't want to save our password as plain text, so we need to hash it. There are a couple of ways we can achieve that. We can either add the hashing implementation directly inside the resolver, or we add it in the user model, which is what we will do. First, let's pull in bcrypt. Then we want to hash the password before saving to the database. So we will make use of SQLize before create hook. Then we define an async function which will accept the user then user.password await .hash then the user password then the salt. Now the user's password will be hashed before inserting inside the database. Now we can generate JSON web token for the user. First, we need to install a package that will help us with that. Then we can pull it in. Before we make use of the package, let's create a secret key which will be used to generate and verify our tokens. I'm going to call this JWT_secret. And we can use anything as our secret provided it is secured. So I'm going to use a super duper very long secret. So jwt.sign, I'll pass an object containing the user details, should be ID, then the user ID, email, and the role. Then the second argument is the secret key, which you can get from our environment variable. Lastly, an object which will contain the duration in which the token will last. So expires in, then we want the token to expire in 1 hour. Then this will be token. Then we can return token. So now let's import this file inside the index.js file. Now we can test this out. First, let's make sure our server is running. Refresh this. Get rid of all this. The operation we want to run is mutation. So we type mutation, followed by the name of the mutation, which is sign up, which accepts a username, an email address, then a password. Then we want to return the token. And here we have it, the generated token. And if we check our database, we should see the new user.